Hey everybody, this is GGB. Today we're going to be getting into what happened yesterday in college basketball, how I hit on my upset amazingly, and all the games that are going to be going on today. I hope you guys are excited because I am. Let's dive straight into this thing. In the ACC, we had two pretty big games yesterday. Florida State was taking on Miami, and Virginia was taking on NC State. Now, NC State actually upset Virginia yesterday, which gives you a lot of hope for a Virginia Tech fan of passing Virginia for second place, because Virginia has lost 3 straight, I like to point out. I don't know how they're still in the top 25, but they still are. They play Miami on next Monday, so they have a little bit of time to get their stuff together. Then they have to play Louisville. I could easily see them finishing 1-1 on the year, as long as Virginia's Tech just doesn't mess this stuff up and wins against Wake Forest, NC State, and Louisville. They should take second place, but they lost to Georgia Tech. They're a weird team. They're streaky. And that's a tough team to pick for and against. I believe Virginia Tech can easily beat anyone any given weekend, but I also believe they can lose to anyone any given weekend. So it's odd. Virginia Tech's, I've been saying it for a while, a tough team to really understand. But Virginia lost to NC State. NC State pulled off a massive upset. Now you're just hoping for a Syracuse loss soon, and then you beat if Syracuse loses, right, their next game, and you win your next game, which is against Pitt. It should be an easy dub. Syracuse plays Georgia Tech. Going to be a tough game for Syracuse, that's for sure, the way for Georgia Tech's playing. As long as, if you're an NC State fan, and you can pass them. You can pass Syracuse. And for instance, a lot of people are talking about Syracuse making the playoffs. NC State is slowly rising up the ACC. I don't think we should be talking about NC State in the playoffs just quite yet. They still they have an 11-9 record, not a great record, but they passed Syracuse. And you're going down the list. How many ACC teams you're going to let in? In my opinion, it should be around 5. I think we should let in Florida State, Virginia Tech, Louisville, and Clemson. I believe that's the 5 ACC teams that really should go. Hit me up in the comment section. Who are the ACC teams you think should make the playoffs? Moving to the SEC, we actually got a decent-sized upset last night when Arkansas upset Alabama. As I said before, they said that it's still possible for a team to win the SEC that's not Alabama, but I'm looking at the schedule moving forward, and if Alabama loses all their games, they finish with a 13-4 record. And if Arkansas wins the remaining 2 games, they finish with a 12-4 record. Point to me and tell me what team is going to surpass that, because Arkansas would still have 1 less win than Alabama. Now, I honestly do believe that Arkansas is the second best team in the SEC. I am very confused about who is good in the SEC outside those two. Because LSU is a streaky basketball team. They are the definition of streaky. You got Florida, who won against Auburn. They haven't been great, but they've been able to beat teams that they should be, unlike LSU. Tennessee. Tennessee's been streaky. Ole Miss is actually they've been actually pretty solid throughout the year. They haven't been world-breaking, but they've been solid. Missouri, I don't know what to expect, because one week they beat Illinois, the next week they lose to Ole Miss and Auburn and Georgia. It's very confusing. Georgia's actually a team I think is underrated in the SEC, just because they haven't been able to win any games, but they did beat LSU I don't remember, a few days ago. But basically, Arkansas beat Alabama. Again, I don't think they can pass Alabama for first place, but it did help them cement their place in second place, at least for the moment. They don't have that tough of a schedule moving forward. If you actually look at it, they play LSU and South Carolina. So as long as they beat South Carolina, they can lose to LSU, technically speaking, and still take the second place spot in the SEC. So as long as they hold up against South Carolina, they should be fine. Big East, Creighton was able to avoid an upset last night against DePaul. Now, DePaul didn't make this a close game at all. I would like to say DePaul made it a close game. They did not make it even close. There were actually some significant wins last night. Butler was able to upset Seton Hall, and Providence was able to upset Xavier. Yay for those 2 teams. Good for Butler and Xavier. Now, St. John's is no, but it's okay. Marquette was actually able to upset UNC last night in an out-of-conference game that was scheduled at the last moment. So that's impressive. Now let's go into the games that are today. We have 3 pretty big Big Ten games. We have the top 4 teams in the Big Ten all playing today in Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, and Iowa. Now, there's a lot of different opportunities here. There is a scenario, and I'm serious about this. There is a scenario where Iowa gets to second place today. That is a scenario that is possible. So, there's a lot of crazy stuff that would happen today. No one's overtaking Michigan. And the crazy thing is, Michigan has 2 mulligans. They can make 2 pretty sizable mistakes in their last 2 games. They have 5 games remaining. There's only 2 tough teams left, really, when you have a tough Illinois team left to face and you have a tough Iowa team to face tonight. But they can make those 2 mistakes, and they can't make a third mistake, obviously, because then that would put them very close to Illinois. You don't want to be the same. Now, if Illinois loses tonight, they have 3 mistakes to make. Very interesting. But I don't think they're going to lose to Indiana or both the Michigan State games, so it's going to be very interesting down the stretch. I don't think Illinois really has a shot to catch Michigan. Michigan has to make a lot of mistakes down the stretch. But honestly, I'm very interested to see what. Let's go over what can happen with a win and a loss for each team. So, I'm sure as you're excited for Illinois fans, if you win tonight against Nebraska, you move to 13-4. If you win, you're still in second place. That's basically all I have to say about that. Now, even if you lose, it's still possible to stay in second place. You just need Ohio State and Iowa to lose, which Iowa plays Michigan, so, I mean, that's possible. And Ohio State plays Michigan State, which, I mean, Michigan State's been actually pretty good. 2-game winning streak. Wins over Illinois, actually, a few nights back on Monday. And they have a win over Indiana, a pretty good Indiana team. But, you know, I don't know. It's very interesting. Very interesting, but if Illinois wins this game, it puts them at 13-4. And then if Michigan loses this game, that puts them at 11-2. I know you're thinking, there's about an 8% win percentage, like, difference. I think, if I remember the calculations correct, Illinois, it would be at about approximately 76%, and Michigan was at still an 84 around win percentage, even with the loss. So there's still about an 8% gap there if you're an Illinois fan, but you just got to keep hope they keep losing. You have a game against you. You still hold your future kind of in your hands, and then you just got to hope for a miracle with Indiana, Michigan, or one of the 2 Michigan State games, right? Now, if Illinois was to, again, if Michigan wins, they stay in first place. Now, if Illinois was to lose this game, and Ohio State was to lose, and Iowa was to win, that's the scenario where I said Iowa gets to second place, Illinois would drop to third, and Ohio State would drop to fourth. Now, there is a scenario where Illinois drops all the way down to fourth place. With a loss, they would fall at 12-5, right? With a win, Ohio State rises to 13-5. They move to second place. Obviously, that's what you're hoping for if you're an Ohio State fan. Now, if you're an Iowa fan, if they were able to upset Michigan tonight, they can move up to third place with a win, and Illinois would fall down to fourth. The worst thing that can happen for Ohio State is they lose tonight, fall to 12-6. Iowa wins, they've moved to 12-5, and pass Ohio State for third place. That's basically all the scenarios in the top half. Iowa can move to third, second, or stay in fourth place tonight, depending on what happens. And you have Ohio State, who can fall to fourth, or rise to second, or stay where they're at third. And Illinois can stay at second, move to third, or fourth place. A lot of different things can happen. There can be a whole different order in the top 4 tonight. But those 4 are going to be the same regardless. Now, if you move on, you have Michigan State. Michigan State would love a win here. Would absolutely love a win, because with a win, they move to 7-9 in conference, which has the same record as Indiana. With a win, they move to 13-9 overall. That would move them up past Indiana, who has a 12-11 overall record. Now, if you actually look at it, that would put them in 9th place in the Big Ten. Very impressive. Very close to 8-9 Maryland. Now, Michigan State down the stretch does not have a favorable schedule, having to play Michigan twice. Still had to play in Ohio State tonight, but they do play Maryland on Sunday, so they kind of hold passing Maryland in their hands. They could have the chance to pass Maryland, but Maryland's on a streak, 4 straight wins, so it's going to be interesting to see how Michigan State handles that. But Michigan State has been playing phenomenally well. That proved that against Illinois. They have a chance to pass Indiana tonight. Now, if you're a Minnesota fan, you're obviously hoping for a loss tonight from Michigan State and hoping for your team to pull off a win today against Northwestern. The good thing about this for Minnesota is at least they're home. They have had lots of trouble on the road, which makes the Nebraska and Penn State games loom large on Saturday, February 27th, and Wednesday, March 3rd. It's not looking great for Minnesota, but a win tonight would put them at 7-10, and a loss by Michigan State tonight would move them to 6-10. So obviously, if you're a Minnesota fan, you're hoping for that. You would be able to pass Michigan State. So you're an Ohio State fan tonight. Now, a Penn State fan would love for Michigan State to lose and Minnesota to lose, so that puts them within striking distance when they play Purdue tomorrow. Now, Nebraska plays Illinois. Now, with a win, they move to 2-13. They're not moving regardless, but they can inch a little bit closer to Northwestern. And obviously, if you're a Nebraska fan, you're a huge fan of Minnesota tonight. Now you move on to the American. Now, again, Houston's playing an out-of-conference game, so it's not going to affect the conference at all. But if you actually look at it, I'd like to talk about Houston, Wichita State for a little bit. As long as Wichita State wins their next two games, they are the conference champion. They play Tulane and Temple, I believe. Those are two of the worst teams in the American. But East Carolina was able to upset Houston, so who knows what's happening in the American. Now you actually go, Houston's playing one of the toughest it's a tough out-of-conference game in Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky's an underrated team, in my opinion. 8-2 in conference, 15-4 overall. Has a 6-game win streak. It has been good for a long time. Easily, in my opinion, the best team in Conference USA. I expect to see them in the March Madness tournament moving forward, and I could see them pulling off one major upset. The Hilltoppers are actually rather good this year, and I think they're an underrated team. Moving on to the WCC, Gonzaga is playing Santa Clara. Obviously, you're a Santa Clara fan. You're in a little bit of a pickle tonight. Obviously, you don't want to play Gonzaga because there's chances are you're not going to win. Actually, I believe Gonzaga is favored by 26.5 points in this game. But you would like to stay where you are in fourth place or move up one at the very most. So here's what you have to think about if you're a Santa Clara fan. Do you think you're going to win tonight? Because if you don't think you're going to win tonight, you're a huge fan of San Diego. Because San Diego's playing San Francisco. And if San Francisco loses, then you stay where you're at in fourth place, right? You can't move down a spot. Now, you think you're going to win. Obviously, you'd want San Francisco to pull off the upset against San Diego, because if San Diego loses, it puts you a little bit closer. But if San Diego wins over San Francisco and Gonzaga beats you, you fall down a spot to fifth place, and San Francisco moves up a spot. So obviously, for San Francisco fan, you're obviously watching your San Diego game when you're playing, but obviously you're also hoping Gonzaga pulls off, wins against Santa Clara. That's basically what's going on in the WCC. Gonzaga, only thing on the line at this point for Gonzaga is, in fact, bragging rights for the one seed, number one overall seed. Now you look at the Pac-12. USC is I believe traveling to Colorado, if I'm correct. They're traveling to Colorado, number 19 USC, and actually Colorado's favored by 3 points in this game, so it's going to be interesting. Colorado's been a decently good basketball team. I mean, as good as you can expect from the Pac-12. They have an 11-6 overall in conference record. Now, if you look at this just from a perspective as a UCLA fan, obviously you're rooting for your Utah game tonight when you play Utah, but also you're a huge fan of Colorado tonight, because Colorado with a win, and if Colorado beats USC and you beat Utah, you have a chance you do take first place in the Pac-12. Now, if you're a Colorado fan, obviously you're watching tonight's game against USC because it's a huge game, huge chance for you to get a pretty good win under your belt. But now, if you actually look at it, if Oregon loses tonight, which they play Stanford, now if Oregon is able to lose, if Stanford beats Oregon tonight and you beat USC, you move up to the 3 spot. The problem is for Colorado is if you lose tonight and Stanford wins, you have the same in-conference record. And I don't know, 15-9 record's looking pretty good. I do overall think that the 17-8 record is better, but you'd be very close with Stanford, and that's not what you want if you're Colorado. So you're a weird fan. If you are confident in your Boulders, if you're confident in your Buffaloes, then I'd be rooting for Stanford tonight, so you can pass Oregon. But now if you're not confident at all, then I'd root for Oregon, because then you are guaranteed to stay in fourth place. But it all depends on how you view your team as a fan. Now moving on to the Mountain West Conference, you have Boise State traveling to San Diego State. Now, San Diego State is actually a pretty good basketball team, but I believe Boise State's underrated. And I really do honestly believe that. Boise State's 14-3 in conference, guys. You don't get that by pure luck. They're 11-0 at home. Unfortunately, they're on the road today. They're only 6-4 on the road. as long as they win these last 2 games, they win the conference, just period. If they go 1-1, now they'll definitely, at the very least, they'll be the 2 seed, right? Because San Diego State can't pass them. If they split the series, San Diego State's not going to pass them. But Colorado State has so many games left, it'd be hard to see Colorado State losing some of these, which they play Air Force, New Mexico, Nevada. Now, the Nevada one's tough, but other than that, they should be able to win. There were all the other ones, and I honestly do believe that would put them past them. Well, actually, it would put them at a 14-4 record. If Boise State was to split them, they would have a 15-4 record. So the worst thing that can happen for Boise State, the best thing, if Boise State does split them, there's still a chance. Colorado State would have to win out instead of just being able to lose one. You'd become a huge Nevada fan if you are a Boise State fan on when they play them. But Boise State's actually been really good. Legitimately, the Broncos are a good basketball team. If they lose tonight, though, they fall to 3rd place. Now, they can just be temporary as long as they win when they play San Diego State again on Saturday. And they do still have one more game left against Fresno State, so there's not a huge worry there. As long as you split this series and beat Fresno State, you should be fine. But it's going to be interesting. San Diego State's favored by 8 points or 6 points in this game, I think. 6 points. Who does GGB think is going to pull off the upset? I know there's a lot of games tonight, so it's hard to follow. But personally, there's a lot of different spreads I could take. There are a lot of low spreads tonight if you actually look at it. Ohio State's only favored by 4. Colorado's actually favored by 3 against USC. You have Michigan only being favored by 5. But I'm going to take one that's a little bit more than all those. And San Diego State's favored by 7 points against Boise State. And I've been praising Boise State all year long. They've been actually a really good team this year. They beat San Diego State early in the year. Yeah, they were a little bit of slump. But I really do believe in the Broncos this year. They're a very good basketball team. I believe underrated. I believe they should have been a top 25 team. But I also believe the Wichita State Shockers should have been a top 25 team. And I didn't believe Tennessee and Missouri were both top 25 teams. But everybody, this is GGB saying adios amigos and go Broncos.